We have breaking news coming out of Roloff Farms that changes absolutely everything. This isn't just family drama anymore. We are talking about allegations of a calculated, documented land heist happening right under our noses. Forget the feud over the big house or the negotiations with the kids. The real battle line has just been drawn in the dirt, and we have exclusive insider reports suggesting that Caryn Chandler has officially gone too far. We're talking about a massive new security fence, buried evidence, and shocking GPS data that sources say proves a deliberate attempt to steal prime acres from Amy Roloff's business usage. Stay tuned, because the word on the ground is that Chris Marek just unearthed something that Matt tried desperately to keep buried, and the fallout is going to be catastrophic. Before we dive deep into the GPS evidence that is about to blow this whole situation wide open, we need to address the recent update that sparked this entire investigation. Over the last week, neighbors around Helvetia and visitors near the farm perimeter have reported an unprecedented level of heavy machinery activity near the boundary line separating Matt's side of the farm from Amy's remaining wedding venue space. We're told it sounded like a construction war zone out there. And now, thanks to some digging by our sources on the ground and investigative analysis of recent farm imagery, we know why. According to exclusive theories circulating among insiders closest to the farm drama, Matt suddenly declared an urgent, non-negotiable need for what he termed a security perimeter. The narrative being pushed heavily by Matt and Caryn to the rest of the family was that crazed fans and looky-loos were getting too close to the big house, posing a genuine threat to Caryn's safety and privacy. It's a convenient excuse, right? Who argues with safety? It shuts down opposition immediately. But sources tell us the speed at which this project moved was incredibly alarming, raising red flags instantly for anyone paying attention. There were apparently no long, drawn-out county debates that we usually see on the show. There were no permits publicly posted that neighbors recall seeing beforehand. It was just bulldozers, augers, and crews showing up at dawn, working double time. The prevailing theory among critics is that Caryn convinced Matt that this had to happen right now, before the new wedding season kicked off and before Amy started having regular foot traffic on her side. It created a sense of false urgency designed to bypass scrutiny from the rest of the family. They needed that fence up before anyone could ask the hard questions about where exactly it was going. Here is where the official story starts to fall apart completely. If this was genuinely about protecting the immediate vicinity of the big house, why was the fence line being established so far out into the open fields? We have looked at historical aerial maps of the farm versus where these new posts were being driven. The line they started digging wasn't just hugging the residential area, it was aggressively pushing outwards. Our investigative theory, supported by whispers from former farmhands familiar with the property layout, is that this had absolutely nothing to do with fans. This was a strategic annexation. This was about taking the most picturesque, usable flat land, the prime real estate crucial for Amy's larger tented events and wedding photos, and walling it off under the unassailable pretext of security. It seems to be a calculated move to squeeze Amy's business into a smaller, less desirable footprint, effectively choking out her ability to host high-end events, all while claiming it's just about keeping Caryn safe. It's the perfect cover for a land grab. Imagine Amy's reaction to stumbling upon this. Sources suggest she came to the farm to check on her side of the property, perhaps prepping for an upcoming client walkthrough or general maintenance. We are told she immediately felt completely disoriented. When you have lived on a piece of land for 30 years, raised your children there, and walked every acre, you know every bump in the ground, every sight line, and exactly where the boundaries lie in relation to the trees. Suddenly, her horizon was blocked. The open flow that made her venue space so desirable was gone, replaced by a line of towering, aggressive wooden posts marching across a field that had always been open. We are told she stood there, genuinely confused, trying to reconcile her deep-seated memory of the property line with what was physically being built in front of her eyes. It wasn't just a fence, It felt like a violation of the unspoken truce they had established during the divorce proceedings. It was a physical manifestation of Matt and Caryn pushing her out. And who was there to greet her during this moment of confusion? Not Matt, who was reportedly conveniently elsewhere on the property supervising other projects. According to intense insider accounts, it was Caryn, standing by the newly erected gatepost, arms crossed, acting as the literal gatekeeper to land that Amy still utilized. The reports claim Caryn's demeanor was ice cold, smug, and dismissive. When Amy, visibly shaken, questioned the placement of the fence and why it was coming so far out into the field, Caryn allegedly dropped the Matt safety card immediately, shutting down discussion. But then, sources say Caryn added a stinging caveat that revealed the true intention behind the construction. She reportedly looked at Amy and said something to the effect of, "You don't need access back here anymore, Amy. This is for the big house now. This is the new reality." It was a power move of epic proportions, designed not just to physically take control of the land, but to psychologically humiliate Amy and assert dominance over the future configuration of the farm. Caryn was planting her flag, literally, in Amy's territory, daring her to do something about it. Amy left that encounter rattled, feeling like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. But she wasn't the only one who sensed something was horribly wrong with this new development. This brings us to the pivotal moment where the narrative shifts from emotional confusion to cold, hard, investigative facts. Enter Chris Marek. Now, we know Chris is often portrayed as the easygoing, go-with-the-flow guy who just wants everyone to get along. But what people often forget, and what the show frequently glosses over, is Chris's professional background. He is a seasoned real estate agent. He deals with property lines, easements, title reports, and survey maps for a living. When he saw Amy come back from that field visibly shaken and describing the new fence line, his professional radar didn't just ping, it went off the charts. Sources tell us that Chris didn't just take Caryn's word for it. He didn't just accept the safety perimeter excuse. He looked at the angles, he looked at the distance from the farmhouse, and something in his gut told him the geometry was all wrong. According to exclusive theories from those close to the production, Chris decided to launch a quiet, independent investigation. He knew that confronting Matt without evidence would just lead to another shouting match, or Matt gaslighting them about approximations and visual buffers. He needed proof. We are hearing reports that Chris waited until the construction crews had clocked out for the day and the sun was dipping low over the Oregon hills to make his move. He didn't go out there empty-handed. While Matt might have machinery, Chris has technology. Insiders suggest Chris utilized professional-grade GPS survey equipment, or at the very least, high-precision property line mapping software accessible to real estate professionals, to verify the legal boundaries of the farm. This wasn't a casual stroll. This was a forensic audit of the land. He walked the perimeter of where the new fence post had been driven into the soil, tracing the path against the digital plat maps filed with Washington County. And this is where the story gets truly explosive. As he walked the line, watching the coordinates on his screen, the discrepancy allegedly became undeniable. The theory we are tracking is that the GPS data didn't show a minor error. It wasn't a matter of a few inches or a foot, which can happen with sloppy contracting. No, sources claim the fence line was deviating wildly from the legal boundary. We are talking about a shift of 20 to 25 feet in some areas. Now, 25 feet might not sound like a mile, but when you stretch that over the length of a pasture, you are talking about nearly 2 full acres of land being effectively annexed from the north side to the south side. This wasn't an accident. You don't accidentally dig a straight line of post holes 20 feet off target unless your reference points have been deliberately moved or ignored. Chris realized at that moment that this was a heist. It was a fence line land grab designed to permanently alter the footprint of the farm before anyone could legally challenge it. If that fence was finished and the wire strung, the concept of adverse possession, or simply the new status quo, would make it incredibly difficult and expensive for Amy to reclaim that space. They were literally stealing the ground from under her business. But Chris Marek knew that GPS data on a screen is one thing. Physical evidence on the ground is another. To prove this to Matt and to expose Caryn's alleged scheme, he needed to find the original survey markers. For those who don't know, property corners are typically marked by iron rods or pins driven deep into the ground, often capped with plastic or metal identifiers. These pins are the ultimate authority. They don't lie, they don't have agendas, they just mark the truth. This is where the situation reportedly turns from a land dispute into a cover-up. According to reports, Chris navigated to the exact coordinates where the corner pin should have been, the legal dividing line between the residential parcel and the event space. When he got there, he found fresh, disturbed earth. It wasn't just the churned-up mud from the tire tracks of the heavy machinery. It looked like specific patches of ground had been worked over and then patted down. The theory gaining traction is that someone knew exactly where those pins were and tried to make them disappear. Chris, understanding exactly what he was looking at, allegedly got down on his hands and knees and started digging through the loose soil. He wasn't going to stop until he hit metal. This is the image that changes everything. Chris Marek, usually the diplomat, digging in the dirt with his bare hands, driven by the realization that his wife was being defrauded by her own family. And then he hit it. The metal clink of the surveyor's pin. But it wasn't where the fence posts were. It was way back, 25 feet back. The pin was still there, buried under a deliberate layer of fresh fill dirt, hidden from sight so that the construction crew would just follow the spray paint lines that Matt or Caryn had likely laid down themselves. This was the smoking gun. The original pin proved that the new fence was illegal. It proved that the safety perimeter was actually an invasion. It appeared that Caryn or Matt had not only authorized the fence in the wrong place, but had potentially taken steps to conceal the actual boundary markers to fool the contractors. It's a devastating accusation, but the timeline and the physical evidence Chris reportedly uncovered point to a level of deception that is truly shocking. He didn't just find a mistake, he found a trap. He pulled out his phone and started filming everything. The GPS reading, the location of the new posts, the distance to the buried pin, and the fresh dirt used to hide it. He was building a case file right there in the muddy field. The implications of this discovery are massive. If Chris hadn't checked, if he hadn't known how to use that equipment, the fence would have gone up, the concrete would have set, and Amy would have lost that land forever. It makes you wonder how many other maintenance projects or upgrades over the years have slowly chipped away at what Amy owns. This wasn't about safety. This was about erasing Amy's presence, foot by foot, post by post. Chris stood up, dusted off his hands, and reportedly looked toward the big house with a look of pure determination. The nice guy act was over. He had the evidence, and he was ready to bring the war to their doorstep. He wasn't just going to tell Amy, he was going to arm her with the undeniable proof she needed to stop the construction dead in its tracks. But he knew that taking this evidence to the main house wasn't going to be a polite conversation. He was walking into a lion's den, armed with the truth that Caryn was desperate to keep hidden. This was about to get very, very ugly. The discovery is where the house of cards began to tumble, but the confrontation that followed is where the real devastation occurred. Sources tell us that Chris Marek didn't waste a single second. He walked straight back to Amy's farmhouse, mud still caked on his knees, and showed her the footage on his phone. We can only imagine the shift in Amy's demeanor. For years, she has been told she is paranoid, that she is holding on to the past, that she is the one creating drama. But here, staring back at her from a glowing screen, was undeniable, geotagged proof that she was being robbed. The theory is that this was the moment Amy Roloff finally stopped playing nice. She wasn't just disappointed, she was legally armed. According to exclusive insider accounts, Amy and Chris marched straight to the construction site where Matt and Caryn were overseeing the final setting of the posts. The atmosphere was reportedly electric. Matt, seeing them approach, likely assumed this was just another emotional plea or a complaint about the noise. He had his security script ready, but he wasn't prepared for Chris Marek, the real estate professional, to take charge. We are told Chris didn't scream, he didn't shout. He simply walked up to the foreman of the construction crew and asked a single, devastating question. Are you building off the verified plat map, or are you building off the spray paint flags? The foreman, looking confused, reportedly pointed to the flags. Flags we now suspect were placed under Caryn's direction. That was the checkmate. Chris then allegedly turned to Matt and held up the phone, playing the video of the uncovered survey pin located 25 feet behind the current line. He showed the GPS coordinates. He showed the intentional burial of the marker. The color reportedly drained from Matt's face. You have to remember, Matt Roloff prides himself on being a master builder, a man who knows land development better than anyone. To be caught in a zoning violation of this magnitude isn't just embarrassing, it's a liability. This is where the narrative takes a shocking twist regarding Caryn. As Matt stared at the evidence, stammering about miscommunications and rough estimates, Amy reportedly cut him off with a threat that stopped the entire production cold. She didn't threaten to cry. She didn't threaten to write a letter. She threatened an immediate court injunction. Sources say she explicitly stated that her lawyer was already drafting the paperwork to halt all construction on the farm pending a third-party forensic survey. An injunction would mean heavy machinery sitting idle, legal fees skyrocketing, and the entire security upgrade being tied up in court for months, effectively ruining the start of pumpkin season preparations. Matt knows what an injunction means. It means burning money. He turned to Caryn, looking for the paperwork, the county approvals she had allegedly assured him were in order for this specific perimeter. And this is the moment the GPS cover-up truly unraveled. According to our exclusive theories, Caryn had no answer. There were no permits for this specific extended line. The approvals were likely for a standard fence repair, not an expansion into neighboring parcels. She had reportedly pushed the line forward on her own authority, gambling that Amy wouldn't notice until it was too late. The realization hit Matt like a freight train. He had been playing. He had been manipulated into funding a land grab that was now about to cost him a fortune in legal fees and reconstruction costs. The dynamic shifted instantly. Matt, furious at being exposed and humiliated in front of his own contractors, allegedly turned his anger away from Amy and directly onto Caryn. He demanded to know why the flags were moved. He demanded to know why the survey pins were covered. Caryn's reaction, according to witnesses, was a masterclass in deflection, but it didn't work this time. She tried to claim it was for aesthetic spacing, that the legal line felt too cramped. But aesthetic spacing doesn't hold up in court when you are stealing 2 acres of commercial property. Amy stood her ground, arms crossed, watching the woman who had tormented her for years shrink under the weight of the evidence. The victory was absolute. Matt, realizing he had zero leverage and facing a legal nightmare, had no choice. He reportedly ordered the crew, on the spot while on the clock, to pull every single post out of the ground. Imagine the scene. Thousands of dollars in labor and materials being reversed in real time. The heavy machinery that had roared in with such arrogance was now beeping in reverse, filling in the holes they had just dug. It was a physical retraction of Caryn's power. Sources describe Caryn's retreat as the ultimate walk of shame. She didn't stay to watch the demolition of her scheme. She turned on her heel and marched back to the big house, leaving Matt to deal with the contractors and the humiliation. For Amy, watching those posts come down wasn't just about the land. It was validation. It proved that her instincts were right, that she wasn't crazy, and that when you come for her business, you better have your facts straight because she has the receipts. This incident has supposedly shattered the fragile peace at Roloff Farms. The fence is being rebuilt, yes, but strictly on the legal line, verified by Chris's GPS. The trust between Matt and Caryn has reportedly taken a massive hit. Matt doesn't like losing money, and he definitely doesn't like looking incompetent. Caryn costing him thousands in surveyor fees and crew time just to satisfy a vendetta against Amy is a bad look for the future matriarch of the farm. As for Amy and Chris, they have emerged from this stronger than ever. They defended their territory, they protected the wedding venue's future, and they exposed the grim reality of what is happening behind the scenes. This wasn't a storyline for TV. This was a battle for the very dirt the farm is built on. So here's the question we are left with. She tried to steal acres of land right under their noses. Do you think Matt really didn't know, or is he just playing the victim now that he got caught? Is Caryn calling the shots, or is she just the fall guy for Matt's ambition? Hit that like button if you'd tear that fence down yourself, and subscribe for more exclusive updates as we track the fallout of the great fence line land grab. The war for the farm is far from over.